The Online Harms Act would recognize 7 categories of harmful content, including content that sexually victimizes a child or re-victimizes a survivor, or is used to bully a child, incites violent extremism or terrorism, or foments hatred. In order to enforce these new laws, the government is proposing a new Digital Safety Commission. It would have the power to order online platforms to remove content that victimizes a child or intimate images shared without consent within 24 hours.
All right, so for today's video, we're going to be talking about this new bill that was outlined earlier this week about online harm. And as you heard from the beginning there's going to be a certain set of criteria, I believe it's 7 different things, that will constitute as online harm. Now, during the announcement, Minister Varani had 2 women behind him who were advocating for this. One was a woman who said she was getting a lot of online abuse, being called the N-word, etc., etc. And the other one was a mother whose child was unfortunately targeted by people who were supposed to be taking care of this child at a daycare. And multiple videos and things were done to this child. And that's one part of this bill that I agree on, which you heard in the end of that clip, was the ability to contact these platforms that these images or videos are posted on when people don't consent to this, and having them taken down within 24 hours. But if I take off the rose-tinted glasses and I come back to reality, the reality is, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet. And 24 hours is a very long time for something to be circulating. You know, you hear of cases of people who accidentally post something and within 5 to 10 minutes, even if they take it down, it's already been seen by so many people, it's getting shared and spread around. So again, once it's on the internet, it's pretty much on the internet. Now, that doesn't mean I don't agree that there should be things put in place to try to mitigate it as much as possible. I just don't see this being like the smoking gun in a sense. Now, that being said, the things that I don't like about this bill is that they're going to be creating regulatory bodies, not 1, not 2, but 3 different regulatory bodies, as you're going to hear from Minister Varani in a second. And Pierre himself has said we need more tough on crime action, not more regulations. But also the way that they frame hate speech, as hate speech is actually not in it. They call it fomented hatred, as you saw in the opening clip. But we'll get into that in a second.
I'd like to understand how you envision setting up this new digital services office, ombudsman commission, and keeping the partisanship out of it. Because some critics will automatically say, well, this is the government. The government gets to pick who's going to be. It's going to be David Johnston, the special rapporteur, all over again. What are you going to do to forestall that and deal with keeping partisanship out of this?
No, thank you, Stephanie, for the question. I think it's important. So it's a digital safety commission, it's a digital ombudsperson, and it's a digital safety office. So there's 3 sort of components here. But what's really critical is that they're going to have expertise. They're going to be able to deal with this in a dynamic manner. The internet is constantly changing. But very importantly, to your point, I know that we need to both establish this, but we need to have Canadians confident in how it's going to work on the ground. And what we've specifically entrenched in the bill itself, I'd urge you to look at it closely, is that the chair of that commission, the head Digital Safety Commissioner of Canada, will be decided in the chamber that is right below us. It'll be voted on in Parliament, in the House of Commons, and in the Senate. We want Canadians, through their representatives, to have a say on who that person is, to have confidence in their ability to execute that function. It is a critical function. I appreciate that. We are being very careful and measured in how we are approaching this and how we are working to ensure Canadians' confidence in that. If there are other measures that work towards enhancing Canadians' confidence in this institution that's being created, I hope that comes out in the parliamentary debates, in the committee study, in the Senate's work on this bill. It is critical that we get this right and ensure that confidence.
Now, I think it's great that he wants to paint this as it's going to be a collaborative thing with the Conservatives, the Liberals, the House of Commons, the Canadian public. We want them to tell us who they want in this position. But I don't think Canadians actually want the government to be censoring them or dealing with censorship online. I think Canadians want to give the government less power in regards to that instead of more. But as he continued getting questions, one question was about law enforcement and, having more access or understanding of what they can and can't do now. And this is what he had to say.
Minister, is this new standalone hate crime Is that enough? Does there need to be more help for more support for law enforcement to tackle this sort of thing?
I think we always need to ensure law enforcement has the assistance to do this. There's a person behind me, Mohammed Hashim, who's right here on the right, and he has been doing incredible work with the Canadian Race Relations Foundation on just laying out what constitutes a hate crime. There are hate crimes units among certain police forces in this country. In my view, there are not enough. What is critical in this legislation is that we are also entrenching a definition of hatred, which is critical. People say to me, well, Minister Vrani, where did that definition come from? Is that something you guys just developed behind closed doors? Categorically not. That definition of what is hatred, what arises to the level of hatred, comes from Supreme Court jurisprudence that dates back to 2013 and cases before it. The Supreme Court has outlined that what we are talking about is detestation and vilification of a person or a group. We are not talking about stuff that some people call awful but lawful. There will still be humiliating comments. There will still be offensive comments, insults, expressions of disdain and dislike. There's a lot of stuff that is out there that will remain out there. But when people arise to the level of detestation and vilification, law enforcement, and they asked me for this when I was consulting on this literally 3.5 years ago as David Lamedi's parliamentary secretary, they said we need clarity on the definition.
As you can see there, he's talking about giving them a definition, and that it states that if the bill is passed, it would define hate speech as content of a communication that expresses detestation or vilification of a person or group on the bias of prohibited grounds of discrimination. Now, if you were to Google detestation, it says intense dislike, and vilification as abusively disparaging speech or writing, which to me, I don't understand how that can be a crime when that's just words and writing. Now, I know we're not the States, but if you were to go to the American Library Association, it states that a hate crime, as per the FBI, has defined a hate crime as a criminal offense against a person or property motivated in whole or in part by the offender's bias against a religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. It then goes on to state, a hate crime is more than offensive speech or conduct. It is a specific criminal behavior that ranges from property crimes like vandalism and arson, or acts of intimidation, assault, or murder. So this is talking about physical things, not just you say, oh, I don't like, whatever, Asian people or black people or white people, and all of a sudden that's a hate crime. And this is where everything starts to get really muddy, because if you're listening to him talking about hate crimes and crime units enacting in a definition, well, he says it would define hate speech as detestation and vilification, but that it would exclude discrediting, humiliating, making fun of people, hurting their feelings. But detestation and vilification would be part of that as well, because you're writing it, you're saying it, this, and that. So it's either not a hate crime or it is a hate crime. And again, I understand we're not the United States, but even the ACLU, it states, the First Amendment of the Constitution protects speech no matter how offensive its content. Restrictions on speech by public colleges and universities amount to government censorship, which is something we don't want. It also says, where racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and transphobic speech is concerned, the ACLU believes that more speech, not less, is the answer most consistent with our constitutional values. Now understand, we don't have the First Amendment, we have the Charter of Rights. But if we were to give the police this kind of power, we would start to see issues like they did with the trucker protests, where the OPP were coming to people's houses because of a Facebook post they did, or even in Australia, the UK, all those other European countries that do this kind of thing, where they come to your house because, oh, you posted something on Facebook 6 months ago, and they didn't like the way you talked about, the jab shot or something else.
Sorry, since you're at my home, can I just get your name and your badge number, please?
I have a card here.
Okay.
It's Erica Ingram.
Thank you.
And this is just some information about peaceful protests. That's all it is.
Okay, so you saw something on my Facebook?
No, on the Facebook group.
Okay, and decided to come to my personal residence to give me information about peaceful protest?
Yes.
Okay, so are the Peterborough police No, you're with
We're
OPP? Are you guys now monitoring people's Facebook pages? Or Facebook groups to who comments as to what their status updates are or what they're doing or
So
within the group?
Just
Like,
because of the protests happening province-wide, yes, we have been monitoring the protests.
Okay.
That is all.
so the Ontario Provincial Police are watching what people are doing on Facebook in different groups, whether or not they're commenting, participating, liking, and you guys are now doing service calls to give people information about peaceful protest. I'm hoping that you guys aren't going to waste our tax dollars continuing to do this to everybody.
Do you agree that you put some posts on Facebook? Does this look
This is
familiar?
illegal as. Yep.
Did you put this on Facebook?
Yep.
So the question that's been raised is, were you there?
Oh, no comment. Yeah.
Is that you? Or
Well,
were you there?
does it matter?
Yeah,
You're
well,
handing me
I'm not-
paperwork saying I've sent a
I'm
photo.
not handing you anything. I'm asking you a question. On
Well,
behalf
you've got
of
the photo, don't you?
other-
So,
that doesn't. You've put a photo on Facebook. Doesn't actually confirm whether you were there or not. So I'm asking. Were you
so
there?
if I say no, you're not going to give me the paperwork. You're going to go home,
There's
are
no
you?
paperwork here to give you. This is my
Okay. So
information.
what are we here for? Are you here to serve me,
Okay,
or?
what part didn't? No.
Intimidation.
Yeah, I know. It's just. It's loserish. It is like sad.
I'm doing
What is this
a job
humanity?
I've
Where are
been
we
asked
going
to
in
do.
life?
I've been
You've got the
asked to
cops
do
coming
job.
around here to tell me that I've been at a protest
No, to ask
6
you if
months
you have-
ago.
To ask you if you have been.
Yeah,
In
well, who
July,
gives
that's
a
not
How
months ago.
illegal is that?
Which part?
Going to a protest. Why are you guys here? Why is
Because
the
you're
police on my
mass gathering.
doorstep
You're-
about a protest?
Yeah. Because
Why?
It's illegal.
Black Lives Matter protests 2 weeks before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, was that illegal? Are you knocking on their doors?
Maybe.
No, you're not. So it's clearly so imitating. Why are you working for this corrupt government? What are you guys doing? Who are you serving? Are you serving us, or are you serving the corrupt government and health officials?
Now, as bonkers as those videos are, that could be your reality if this bill gets passed, because you could potentially have knocks on your door from the police saying, oh, you know, we got a comment that was flagged for hatred, and so we're just following up on this. But the reporters push back and say, how can you be talking about hate speech when you took hate speech out as one of the regulations? And, you know, Mr. Varani here is a bit of a weasel by saying, oh, no. We talked about fomenting hatred.
You've removed hate speech as one of the categories of content. So to Stephanie's point, how are you going to be you're not going to be regulating that because you've just taken it out of the 7 categories of content that you're going to be regulating social media companies to
So
police.
what I'd say to you is that there are 7 categories across the board that constitute harmful content. That is incorrect. Content that foments hatred is one of the 7 categories.
But if we look at the definition of foment, it states instigate or stir up an undesirable or violent sentiment or course of action. Instigate, incite, provoke, agitate, excite, etc., etc. So again, he's combining the physical thing or actually inciting harm to somebody with hate speech, but then at the same breath saying you can still, you know, insult somebody, make fun of them, humiliate them, this and that. So the water is getting very muddy here. But as he's saying all this, I'm confused as to whether there's a standard, a definition, you know, a set of rules that they're going to be following. But he clearly states to the reporters that individuals will have the power to basically report whatever they want.
Okay, but to your point, Stephanie, that is not one of the immediate takedown provisions. That is correct. But there are still aspects that empower users. I'll give you some of them. Okay? If you are affected by what you think is content that is fomenting hatred, that meets that definition, what you can do is you can flag that content to the platform. One route. Second route is you can flag that content to the Digital Services Commissioner and they can seek some response from the platform. The third route is that the platform, pursuant to this legislation, is going to implement a digital safety plan that talks about risks that are out there, what we're doing to reduce those risks, and they're going to be held accountable for what they are doing or not doing to reduce those risks themselves.
And this to me is just going to open up Pandora's box to everybody saying, I'm offended by this, I'm offended by that, I'm reporting this, I'm flagging this, hey, please take this down, you know, ban their accounts, do this, do that. It's fomenting hatred towards me or towards a group or towards somebody I know. Like, this is not good. Or the other option is you hand it over to this new regulatory body the government's creating, and then they can deal with you. Like, people already have the ability to block, delete comments, not follow somebody, not read posts. And if somebody sends you something hateful or hatred, just delete it or block it. And I also see this as making everyone so super soft to anything. Like, nobody can be uncomfortable. Nobody can hear something that's negative. Nobody can, hear a point that's different than theirs. And this is not a good way to foster conversation, dialogue, discourse, debate, anything like that. And that can create dangerous echo chambers that people get stuck in forever. I'll get the odd hate comment from time to time, and it'll usually say something like, "Oh, he's stupid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This video sucks." And it's never like of substance, these comments. And I'll engage with those individuals and say, "How about you come up with something constructive? Let me know what it is that you disagreed with, or that you thought of differently, or that I got wrong in the video." Because who knows, maybe I did get something wrong, or there's a different point of view that I didn't see. But when these people just want to label everything as hate and shut it down, or they don't want to hear another viewpoint, then we miss that whole dialogue and getting to understand where other people are coming from. But again, this is just my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.